Well, the Kraken have started off so successfully. The brand, the launch, everything, right? The demand. What do you attribute all this success to?
I always start with fans. So March 1st in 2018, I was in the league, the NFL offices. My brother called me, but I was in a meeting with my boss. He called again. He finally sent a text saying, please call me, it's urgent. And I called him and he reported that the team had taken 10,000 deposits in the first 12 minutes. And at the end of the day, by the time they shut the spigot off, 32,000 deposits had been placed for tickets. And those fans were so excited because in 2020, we were going to launch the team in the building. Well, it got pushed off a year. And then we went through all of those things you and I have talked about, and including a global pandemic, and yet our fans never wavered. And so early on, when my brother asked me, I said, Tim, I believe the Seattle fans are the greatest sports fans in the world. So when you take the fans and then you add them into our ownership, OVG, and the phenomenal work they've done in developing this building, redeveloping this building, but my boss, David Bonderman, the conviction he's had to this project, he's never wavered. And the flight to quality has just been extraordinary at any turn in the road. And early on, even when we saw the costs going up, there were a list of things that we could have value engineered out of the building. Not only we not value engineer, we took on additional costs to do it right. Things like David Rockwell doing interiors. Never before had a firm like his, who developed some of the most high-end nightclubs, restaurants, and hotels, never before had they taken on the work of an arena. Now the 7 clubs within this building are spectacularly designed, as they should be. And so there's a lot of things have to come together to see something like this happen, including the city. And many people like blasting the city in its vogue, and they bait me into wanting to do it. I can't. The city has been a good partner. Robert Nellums, who runs Seattle Center, has been phenomenal. But at the end of the day, this got down to the owners and their conviction and courage. And then ultimately, it's all about the fans. And the fans have been phenomenal.
If I remember right, Robert's a basketball guy too.
He is.
Yeah, I think he's probably ready to see some Sonics.
He was one of the depositors. He waited patiently. His number came up and he bought season tickets. And I think he's going to be uniquely proud. Early on, people asked me every day for about 2.5 years of my life, what's the team name going to be? And Robert was one of those anything but the Kraken guys. But, the day we revealed it, he looked and said, okay, it's kind of cool. Maybe I'm in. And he was in. So.
I have to admit, I was in that camp. We were working with the launch of the XFL, and I know there was some conflict issues with names and things like that. And I don't know why I'm not into the mythical creature thing or whatever. And I just thought there was so much heritage in the Northwest. I grew up in Alaska, as you know, and some of the things that were contemplated, there was just some cool ties, right? I was picturing sockeye salmon and all the ways that could play out into fun and humor. And I didn't know what the right thing was to do by any means, but I didn't love the idea, and I was clearly wrong because it's been immediately adopted.
Yeah, and I'm going to be honest, it wasn't on my top 10 list, but it wasn't our job to interpret our feelings. It was our job to understand what the fans wanted. And before we entered the COVID world, we sold our club seats. And so I would go over to the preview center almost every day, and fans would walk in and proactively, hey, what should the team name be? And for those who said the Kraken, I had additional questions like, well, what in the hell is it? Then there was a consistency of feedback where people said, I'm not so sure. And what it was, it was a dynamic where it was living in their mind, in the theater of their mind. And there it was more dangerous than something we would explicitly draw. So ultimately, when we named the team the Kraken, we designed a mark that didn't really reveal. There's an S and it's got ribbed, and there's an insinuation of a tentacle, and there's an eye, but we allowed it to continue to live in the theater of people's minds. And, it's been super well received. We then went out and have put together an incredible staff, including a guy named Johnny Greco, who's going to take that brand and interpret it in the game experience. And that part is really now coming on, and it's a lot of fun. It's fun to develop the things like the game experience, the broadcast piece. But I was just on the phone with Ron Francis, our great general manager, That's the most important thing we're going to be developing here in the coming months is the actual team.
Seattle could use some unification. New franchise could be a big part of that, right?
Yeah, and that seems trite a little bit to talk about sports in light of some of that, but I can't help but believe that we actually can be part of the solution if we do what we have the opportunity to do right. And it's so important to do it right. And we're trying. We're trying to build one of the most diverse organizations in sports. And rather than grandstanding on it, it should be a way of life. And I know lots of companies are hiring chief diversity officers. I hope we're never one that needs to do that. I hope that our diversity becomes a way of life for us. And then, if that's the case, if we're indeed building a very diverse organization, it's really important that we also be a high performance organization. So people can look at what we've done and say, hey, there's a better way to do this. We're right now 43% gender diverse, about 23% BIPOC diversity. And it's important. It's one of the most important things that I feel I'm doing and we're doing.
Well, and I can confirm that, from very early stages when we were working with you in the Seattle Center and some of the stuff with the city, to get the arena done and all that, it was openly spoken that, this organization needs to reflect this community. And there were some very specific hires at even just mid and junior levels, that were notably seeking candidates to reflect Seattle and the country and world at large. So yeah, I can confirm that that's not just talk. I've seen it. I've seen you do it from the very beginning of building this thing.